Good morning, everybody. Respected Professor Mishra, Head of the Department, Professor Paneer Selvam, Professor Srivastava, and the Madam, colleagues of the department, friends, and ladies and gentlemen. This is a humble attempt to understand Professor Radhakrishnan, whom I had not studied very seriously earlier. Professor Mishra gave me really a challenging kind of topic to make me study and present whatever I understood in front of you. Professor Radhakrishnan is known as an Advaitian, and as all of you would know, since you are related to either belonging to or student of or those who know PHU, the concept of Maya is misunderstood more than understood, I should say, after reading Radhakrishnan. Maya is said to be erroneous or illusory, giving you illusory knowledge. The term knowledge is a very key term here. And Advaita, quite a few scholars as well as those who have studied Advaita tend to say Maya is illusory or erroneous knowledge you will have if you believe in Maya. And under this, if I have to speak about pluralism, multiculturalism, Vasudhaiva, Kuṭumbakam, these three technical terms, I will be speaking on illusion or erroneous knowledge. However, Radhakrishnan helped me to see it in a different manner. That's what I will be attempting to present today. When I was trying to write down something, what turned out to be large part is Advaita philosophy, the new interpretation or already well known to many as a background, and then introduce these three terms which he has given me as key terms in the topic. So let me begin with the general relationship between absolute Brahman on the one hand, the extreme other end of pluralistic realities of Maya on the other. So, Radhakrishnan studied in Christian College, Madras, I think, and he was, of course, belonging to the Brahminic tradition where Vedas are studied and Upanishads, and of course Advaita and other Vedantic texts. He was aware of Indian philosophy, and in fact that is his specialization. And he was made to learn about Christianity, and he took interest further trying to understand Christianity, its philosophy, its religion, and also later on in his career explored, I guess, other religions. Buddhism he must have known already. And matured philosopher, he had to find his own way of understanding different religions and different philosophies, of course. And he had the aim of trying to somewhere link all these so-called philosophy and religions in a respectable, cohesive manner. And I guess that's what he succeeded in doing, though many are not perhaps aware of the subtle way he links all these different religions, different societies, different cultures, and with Hinduism and Advaita philosophy. So, what I will do is to try to find the ground on which he links these different aspects of religions and different philosophies of Vedanta, especially Advaita Vedanta, and trying to make room for Brahman, Jiva, Jagat, and so on. Everything that is valuable in Vedanta philosophy. Now, the most important thing he found in all this kind of linkage was the concept of spirit. Talking about spirit, he said, of course, even ordinary, even uneducated or uncivilized, if you want to call, person also has spirit. So he says, there is no human being who has no spirit. In other words, spirit is another terminology for what we call self, and sometimes we call jiva, and also at a very abstract level you might call it atman. But to begin with, all human beings are having spirit as well as body, which is the part of the physical part of the world. He believes like you are an organism having material aspect, what we know call matter, and then also the spirit. Material aspect is governed by what you might call natural laws, which includes biological and all other laws of science. Body obeys the laws of nature. If you slip, you will fall down. If diseases, that is external bodies or external jivas, invade you, you will suffer from diseases and so on. And spirit is housed in the same body. But Radhakrishnan doesn't face the problem of Descartes. No mind-body problem at all, of course. That doesn't arise. That doesn't arise because spirit is in the body, but is not governed by laws of nature. I need to give you a little more explanation here, because normally freedom and determinism are opposed. There is something known as universal law of causation. Those who know, the arguments, they will say, yes, if the whole world is governed by law of causation, natural law, let us say, you being in this world, your desire, your thinking, your willing, everything is governed by causation. You have no freedom. You might think that you are free and you have made the choice of studying philosophy. Sorry, you are mistaken. Bring in Freud, bring in other, psychologists who talk about, innate ideas as well as your subconscious desires and so on, and then tell you that you didn't choose it. You were forced to do your philosophy, or study your philosophy, graduation, post-graduation, and so on, because of the pushes and the pulls that the nature has. You have the illusion that you are free. You are not really free. Or if you surrender yourself, obviously you are compelled to surrender. This is the one kind of problem which philosophers face. How do you explain freedom? Radhakrishnan didn't face this problem at all. The reason is, his spirit is not in the domain of material causes. It is not part of the world, if you like that. But how is it there then? I would like to give an example where you can imagine how this is possible. Those who have studied geometry a little bit, they will be able to appreciate the argument well. So in geometry, we talk about one-dimensional object, that is a straight line or curved line, whatever. A line is one-dimensional. And they also define that line having no breadth and so on is just two dots are connected, as thin as you can conceive of. Not trying to physically draw, you have to conceive of, in fact. It's one unidimensional object. Then they are introduced the plane, that is two-dimensional object. It has length and breadth. And then you have the third concept of cube, which is three-dimensional object. Length, breadth, and height or depth. Now, you will see that the straight line that I talked about first, that is there in all three. It is there as a line. It is there in the plane or the two-dimensional object or space, whatever you would like to call it. And then it is in the cube as well. It is, the length, breadth, and height or depth or whatever you can talk about. But otherwise, it's not possible. Cube is not in plane. Plane cannot be in single dimensional space. So, in Advaita philosophy, as well as in other, except Charvaka perhaps, other schools of India, as well as in Western philosophy, whoever believes in spirit or soul, the soul is something like, or the spirit is something like single line. It can exist in the other two modes. Like that, the spirit, which doesn't have breadth or length or height, whatever, that can be there in the body. But if it is not there, it is a dead body. When it is dead, people claim that the soul is not there. It is liberated or it is gone out of the body. So if you understand this analogy, now you can understand how transcendental or transcendent things can exist, be immanent in the world. There is no magic in this. This is all very clearly, logically possible. Now, this concept is invoked to explain why spirit can be in the body yet not governed by physical laws. Body is governed by physical laws, laws of nature, laws of motion, laws of rest, or chemical laws, biological laws. One of the biological laws is that we always grow or age. Aging is inevitable. You might use all kind of cosmetics to appear young. You can have, if you have gray hair, you can use black color, whatever, and look young. Not young. You won't become young. Well, you can be young in heart, in the sense that you cut jokes, you are mischievous, you can, all that behavioral, aspects you can try to imitate or reproduce again, but you are already old. So, biological laws, chemical laws, all these laws are governed, are applicable to your body, but not to your spirit. Spirit doesn't grow old, it doesn't become young either. It is what it is. This is the kind of concept which Radhakrishnan was trying to explain to everybody. Then there is another term that creates significant problem till today, according to me. The body, so-called, our organism, as I mentioned, is cause and effects are there on it, and so on. Drug addicts, for example, its effects are so much so that the person loses his independence, the freedom to such an extent he kills his own parents or siblings for getting money. Why does he need money? To buy drug, of course. There are n number of cases of this kind. Parents assuming, after all, he is my son, he will not harm me so much. I don't money, let him get cured. Let him give up his bad habit under the assumption that he has the freedom to give up. Sorry, you won't know when he has lost his freedom. And if he has lost his freedom, he might initially persuade, later on threaten you. If that also doesn't work, physically corner him and manage the money. So there are cases of that kind where I'm saying cause and effect, we become ultimately like any other wild animal or any other kind of lower grade human being. Of course, Radhakrishnan is aware of our weaknesses. He talks about our instinct, emotions, this, that, and is trying to suggest, please recognize that you are a free being. If you don't recognize that, keep on pursuing one pleasure after another, how to earn more money or get more money, how to indulge more in the worldly affairs, and so on and so forth, not recognizing that you have spirit in you or you are the spirit. So, this is what is causation affecting you. Universal law of cause. But Radhakrishnan is trying to pull you out of this blunder. You are spirit, your core, what you call you. That is the spirit that you are talking about. It has a special energy or ability. He says, which I used to say to my students in IIT Bombay once in a while, for the sake of realizing you have the ability or your spirit, try to fast one evening or skip one meal. Can't you do it? You can do it. All right, that is a simple thing. Then I would challenge you, decide on one particular day. You will not get angry at all on anybody. If you cannot manage anything, keep quiet. Let people say anything, insult you, so on and so forth. And I further mentioned to them, suppose you decided you don't want to get insulted on a particular day when you are going to present your paper. Let us say your own friends and others pull your leg, trouble you. Don't get irritated, nothing. You are not going to get angry, get irritated. Try it out. Yes, one can succeed. Now that, how do you succeed? That is because of your spirit, because of your freedom. You have exercised your freedom in this kind of context and started realizing your own power, spiritual power. So, this is what he tried to communicate to the people who read his lectures or listened to him. He said, your freedom is direct, inversely proportion to your bondage. If you are feeling bounded, then you are not free, of course, to that extent. And if you control or limit your needs, there are people, I have heard such people. One fellow, my classmate in my college, said, I cannot get out of the house unless I have, polished shoe. He said he cannot go out without shoe. There are others who told me that they cannot go out of the house unless they have ironed clothes. And there are others who say that I cannot, unless I have cigarette, I can't go to toilet. I heard all kinds of cannot. Look at those cannot. They only tied their knees with their own cannot. Really, these are not cannots. I simply say, what happens? Suppose you go without shoe, without chappal, what will happen? People will laugh at you at the most. You also laugh with them. What will happen? Nothing. So like this, every I cannot is your own making and your own tying down to something which is as if it is a military command. Otherwise, you will be, removed from military. Sorry, this is what we should realize. Quite a few cannots are not really helplessness. And this is unfortunately quite a few people develop psychologically. There is nothing like cannot of this kind. Of course, you cannot fly in the air without aeroplane maybe, or helicopter or something of that kind. That belongs to physical cannot. Drug addict cannot leave the drug unless, there is a certain method that one has to follow. You cannot stop it immediately, but reduce the doses and so on. Eventually, you may be rehabilitated. So this is one kind of causal relationship we have, of course, with nature. There is another cause and effect relationship people talk about, which is philosophically most important. While talking about Maya, for example, Maya is caused by Brahman. I would say this is a misuse of the term cause. Why? If you have cause and effect relationship, you will know, like Kantian philosophy would say, it is both in space and time. It has to be in time. Cause should be at least, even if you are not able to measure it, temporally, logically prior to the effect. So effect cannot be simultaneous. It has to come after the cause. Otherwise, this cause and effect distinction has no meaning. Whereas in the case of Maya and in the case of Brahman, both are anahadi. They don't have temporal dimension at all. Anahadi, eternal. Brahman is eternal. Ananda, of course, refers to that aspect. Satchit Ananda, that is eternal, unchanging. Because it is not temporal, so it cannot change. Change is always with respect to time that we talk about and physical properties. Both are not there with Brahman, Nirguna Brahman. So, in the case of Maya and Brahman, it is one of, in a way, dependence. Maya depends on Brahman. That is, like in the case of the phenomenal world, we talk about substance and attribute. Attribute is appearance, and substance is the basis on which our attributes are dependent on the substance. So gold is substance and yellowness is its property. Or gold is substance, yellowness is its appearance. Yellow color is its appearance. Shapes can be, of course, various kinds. So substance and its attributes, or nomina and phenomena, they are said to be causally related, but not of our ordinary causation. Our ordinary causation has temporal dimension, has other dimensions, like if you talk about the movement, Newton's law, let us say, a physical object which is in motion has some force. I have taken the example of, let us say, water. Water could be stagnant water, and it has no force at all. Stagnant water has no force. But the stagnant water, if it is in motion, river flowing fast, or brook flowing fast, or turbine moving after the water is flowing from high altitude to lower through the pipe, a turbine can be moved and electricity is produced. Hydroelectricity is produced. So the motion has energy or has power, and static water has no power. Extend this to Brahman. Brahman, if he is Nirguna Brahman, he has no this kind of activity at all. He doesn't change. He is pure Sat, he is pure consciousness and doesn't have any attribute. These Chit, Sat, Chit, Ananda, three are there, but they are not description of Brahman. They are Brahman, not a property or attribute of Brahman. But Brahman, when he has the power like the moving water, then yes, that is Maya. And Maya is able to create all kinds of things, all pluralists, all kinds of spatio-temporal objects are there, or phenomena are there. So cause and effect relationship, which is of this kind, substance and attribute or nomina, phenomena, they are simultaneous. They are not one after another. It is not substance is there, then energy comes. It can be, in the sense, Brahman without, yes, Maya is possible. In other words, Advaita philosophy believes when the spirit, when you elevate yourself in the spiritual domain and become Brahman, Brahmanubhava, one of Brahman, then your Maya disappears. That is, in other words, you have become Brahman, motionless. Analogy of motion, of course. So, this is what is Advaita philosophy, without talking about Maya as an error. Adhyasa, all right. It is a superimposition or it makes you think in a certain way, is fine. Or ignorance, avidya, even that is fine. Because the jiva, which is in the ordinary level, doesn't know, like the drug addict didn't know that he could have stopped at the early stage of his disease or habit, bad habit. Or the other, my friends, who were helpless without the shoe, without the iron clothes and so on. They are all helpless because they never exercised their freedom. They never believed that they have freedom. Only while voting, because political parties persuade you to vote and this, that, they thought that they could. Otherwise, they didn't even examine what is their freedom. Radhakrishnan talks about progress, development. If in the modern days, we talk about development. And he says most of the people have misused this term or wrongly used this term. What does development mean? So if you listen to politicians and so on now, so development means, first of all, you meet all the basic needs: food, shelter, clothing, medicine, whatever. That is what is basic need. All human beings must meet. Why only human beings? Even animals in the zoo also must get all of that, whatever they need. Food, at least, proper shelter and so on. Then there are people who talk about development. Standard of living. What is it? Oh, you should have a vehicle, maybe a scooter, maybe a car, things of that kind. You should have good bungalow where each one of you get one room where if you want to study or practice yoga and so on, you must be able to do, and so on. If you want to see the world, you must be able to travel. You should be rich enough to travel all over the world. Only in terms of material things. At the most, well, you must be able to have a TV, enjoy your films or news, this, that, whatever you want to know. You must have a mobile. Of course, these days you can't even think of a person without mobile. You want to open bank account, you must have Aadhaar, you must have mobile, you must have email, what not. They have become basic necessities these days. Anyway, this is the direction in which ordinary human beings go. Radhakrishnan says, you have not evolved at all spiritually. You remained what you were as a young man, maybe, or young woman. I'm sorry, he would say, please spiritually also develop yourself. He points out that the spiritually, those who are trying to develop spiritually, another blunder the saints of India committed or are committing. He says they believe that your involvement in the world doesn't allow you to spiritually progress. Become a sannyasi or reduce your contact with friends and relatives and so on, and cut down your demands, luxuries and so on, become a sannyasi, go away from village, go away from town, Haridwar or Rishikesh, something of that kind you think of, depend on whatever arm you get and try to minimally, have your needs and then try to meditate and things of that kind. Radhakrishnan says, sorry, this is not at all necessary. You can be known as well as try to be like Sthita Prajna of Bhagavad Gita. What is Sthita Prajna? Who has achieved at a spiritual level, very high level. Mysticism he talks about. And mysticism, you are a mystic provided you have succeeded in elevating yourself spiritually at a very significant level. We have talked about, in Indian philosophy, artha, kama, dharma, moksha. Moksha, of course, is an abstract concept for all the ordinary people. They are always involved in kama, and for achieving kama, they need artha. Dharma, if at all, if they can't break it, or if punishment is substantial, then you behave like a respectable citizen. So you are ethical because you have no other way. But this is not what spiritual development is. For Radhakrishnan, you should, have artha kama, but in a controlled way. If you have legitimate earning, if you can take up a job or anything and spend them for all means essential biological needs, well, limit them, have control. Self-control is the key to spiritual elevation. And when you spiritually elevate, generally you go to level where you are called mystic at a certain level. And he describes mystical, virtues. What are they? According to him, truth, non-violence. You will never do violence if you are a mistake. You will be always truthful. You will be always peaceful, loving, not agitated, not annoyed or not, irritated and so on. You are not impatient. You don't have these worldly evils at all. And naturally, you will start treating other human beings as human beings. Kantian maxim, don't treat others as merely means, treat them as end. You naturally start treating them end. You naturally start loving irrespective of his religion, irrespective of his customs, irrespective of his or her sex and so on. So this is what he is trying to point out. If you are spiritually high, automatically you would, start respecting people from any religion because you see a spiritual, saintly aspect in that person. So, Radhakrishnan talks about universal religion. Mind you, the term religion he uses in a specific way. He uses religion as universal religion, that is the property of a mystic, truth-loving, non-violent, honest, sincere, duty-bound, and so on. So he will not call someone who is irrational, who is, emotional, and who is slave of his senses, etc., spiritually high. He doesn't belong to human, so-called Kant's kingdom of ends, the people who are noble and a kind of spiritual beings. The people who belong to this religion, universal religion, potentially everyone, of course, who is in the human form, but for him, those who don't believe in specific religion, those who insist that you should not do this, that, since you are a Christian, you are a Muslim, and so on, then he is not religious at all, according to Radhakrishnan. Yes, he worships his own God or whatever, but he is not spiritual in nature, and his spirit is animal spirit, almost like other animals. So, given this, he makes use of his concept of rationality. All human beings who know language are rational, but rationality of a maybe limited kind. So, nowadays in the Western kind of philosophy, you will hear rule following. Kripke, in fact, introduced this kind of term for his own purpose, of course. Rule following is that you make the rule and follow the rule. Nothing more than that. But learning the language involves rules. Whom to call he, whom to call she. For example, the simple male and female rule that you must know how to apply to a particular person, he or she. Like that, every term in a language will have its own rules. Or you might call it the, usage or meaning and so on. So these rules if you are following, you will have to follow consistently, systematically. If the male has to be referred to in English, it has to be he. Sometimes, all the people who talk gender neutral language, they were trying to develop, of course, English professors generally. Sometimes they suggested use the term they. It could be male or female. Or some people write S/HE, he or she. In writing, you don't want to distinguish male or female. S/HE. These are all tools to develop or express certain attitude. Nothing wrong in it, but sometimes you might need the terms to refer to male alone. Male dominant society. How can you say if you are using they or he, she together? Anyway, so linguistic rule, and if you have learned the language, you have learned how to obey the rules or follow the rules. And that is the minimum level of rationality. Use the rule following thing in the context of morality. Say, for example, when you talk about equal rights, what is that equal rights? All human beings, grown up one, mentally sane, not the insane person. They are all equal in a democratic country, at least in our country. Now, they are all have the right to vote. Not only, there are other fundamental rights anyway, but all are equal. Doesn't mean that all are equal in other senses. But in terms of voting right, all are equal. Those who are, as I said, not insane, above 18 or whatever, that is the age limit, assuming that you should be matured enough to know which party, which government, which kind of, principles you appreciate. Now, this particular thing, the justice is defined rationally. You treat equal things equally. Then you are just. Or if you do not treat unequal equally, say for example, you give, there are some little crazy professors I know in IIT Bombay. They used to give only one grade. All A's. There are 4 or 5 students. They don't want to discriminate anybody. All because they don't attract, such professors don't attract many students. Mediocres come there for A grade because they want to have higher CPI, and all will be given A, irrespective of your attendance, irrespective of what you write. Of course, they are not really teachers, serious teachers. If grading system is there, if there is, big gap between the highest scorer and the lowest scorer, he should give at least 2-3 grades or different grades. So then you are unjust. If you treat, unequals equally, then also you are doing injustice. What is this? This is rationality. Rule followed not followed properly. So the concept of justice is born when you have learned language. You will realize even a small kid of 2-3 years, if elder brother is given 2 chocolates and the girl is given only 1, if she has observed, she would again open and ask for the second chocolate. even not knowing how to express that, only crying or demanding. And after grow up little bit and knows the language, they will argue, you have given two to the brother, you should be giving me two. Where is the sense of injustice? The child has learned, because child has learned rule following. And that is what Radhakrishnan is trying to point out. If you are at a certain level of mistake, naturally you don't want to discriminate yourself from others. You can't be selfish. If you know that you need food, shelter, and clothing, you will plead for others also to have food, shelter, and clothing. This is the reason you will find that even after liberation or nirvana, Buddha came back. He is called Bodhisattva. After liberation, why are you coming and getting into this muddle of the world? He simply said, I can't allow to others to suffer. It is my duty to show them the path of liberation or nirvana. Same thing, you will say, Sthita Prajna will do. The person who has realized, according to Bhagavad Gita, he would like to help others to liberate themselves. Same thing you will see in Shankara, trying to establish different mathas, trying to as taught, or Brahma Sutra Bhashya tried to explain. So things of this kind. Why liberated people also are behaving like ordinary people? Of course, ordinary people with a difference. They dress like us, maybe eat like us, and so on, rest like us. But their concerns are entirely different, and selfish people like us, who is after dignity, after money, and things of that kind, we are not at all spiritually even half closer to them perhaps. The mistakes, true mistakes, are definitely quite closer to such liberated people. Now, my task was to talk about pluralism, multiculturalism, and Vasudhaiva Kuṭumbakam. All right, let us turn to these three concepts. Pluralism is not a problem for those who have understood Maya as the power of Brahman, and of course, pluralism is available. You can talk of pluralism in epistemology, logic, or even political parties, or what not. Yeah, pluralism, Nyaya pluralism, many realities, and so on. Yes, but pluralism in this kind of context, I take it as multi, society with different religions, with different customs, different, cultures, and so on. So when you talk about pluralism of this kind, if it is of one society, what is inevitable is, the one society, if they are coexisting, living in one place, they need to have patience. They need to be accommodative. This is what is a need for pluralism. In pluralism, people would like to retain their identity. How you retain your identity in society? Well, your religion gives you one identity. Then another kind of thing is your culture gives another identity. And like that, if you have a society group of a certain kind, well, that gives you as identity, social identity. Or another type of professional identity, you belong to, teaching community, that is another kind of identity. But in a pluralistic society, Normally, we talk about, well, religion-based pluralism. Culture also, their culture shapes. For example, in Hinduism, so many rituals are tied to the religion or mythology, Mahabharata, or Ramayana and so on. So, customs, tradition, even dance, drama are related to the culture or mythology or, that kind of thing. And similarly, that is true of other religions also. They have their own rituals, their own festivals, their own traditions, their own uh, dance forms and songs and music and so on. Arts, different kind of arts. So, religious tolerance, I must point out this to you explicitly. Radhakrishnan appreciates tolerism of Hinduism. He has, of course, studied and he knows that foreigners have ruled India for several centuries. Several, earlier Mughals, of course, later on followed by, Britishers and different other parts, Portuguese and French people and so on. So all of them have ruled India, sort of came here and they ruled, means they were the kings and so on. But Radhakrishnan appreciates the Hindu ability to retain their spiritualism despite ruthless rule by some of these foreigners. He says he is proud of, and he says Hindus have retained their spiritual identity. Even today, you will find many people speaking of God, religion, but in spiritual terms. So he said Hindus truly have tolerance. They do not hate other religious people and so on. They accommodate, they allow, they live, they let live others. So this is the most core thing about Hindus. That is what he is trying to point out. And using this, he tried to work out the middle ground. That is what is his universal religion, which is, of course, patient, accommodative, loving, caring, non-violent, and, of course, truthful, honest, and so on. So, the same spirit is trying to find in any society, whether it is pluralistic or whether we talk about multiculturalism. India is both, because it has adopted several rituals that we perform today. Part of it seems to be belonging to Mughal. This thing, part of it is, these days even birthdays are celebrated, even in my remote village, coming from Christianity perhaps. So like this, because for Hindus, somebody is born, that is not a happy occasion. Why? You know that a soul has come into the world for suffering. And in Chennai, when I had gone there, you see that old man dying and his dead body is taken, procession is going, and they are dancing, music, and flowers are, offered kind of. It is a sense of happiness that an old soul which was bounded here is liberated. What a profound concept. Hindus believe in that actually. The Jayanti, etc. Now we celebrate big persons Jayanti and so on. We have Gandhi Jayanti, we have, of course, Buddha Jayanti and so on. But God is not born like that, we believe, at the same time. God is eternal. So, this particular stage of mysticism or elevated spirits, okay, they are on the one hand linked themselves with other ordinary human beings. On the other hand, they are related to God, realization, self-realization of God. So this has made Hindus speak about Vasudhaiva Kuṭumbakam. One family. Of course, several paths to liberation and several cultures, several rituals and so on. We could appreciate all religions, their cultures, their language, their customs and so on. At the same time, belong to everybody. All of us belong to one absolute or one God on the one hand, if you are a realized person, on the other hand, with all human beings. This is the way Radhakrishnan, tried to understand these three terms. Of course, he has not extensively written, exclusively written on these topics, but in his lectures here and there, he had given several lectures after becoming even president, and you would see traces of all these elements. And about the religion and other things, of course, he has published certain papers, and his lectures are published. They are all available. And I thank you for patient hearing, and thanks the department and his colleagues for inviting me here. I hope I did minimum justice to the topic. Thank you.